I never thought the worst moment of my life would happen in front of half the neighborhood. It was a Saturday, the air thick with barbecue smoke and suburban cheer. Our cul-de-sac in Palo Alto was buzzing, folding tables stacked with finger foods, kids darting between balloon clusters, and a local jazz trio plinking away near the cul-de-sac median. It was a school fundraiser, the kind where everyone pretends they aren't secretly judging your landscaping or your marriage. I was manning the science club's raffle booth, test tubes and novelty goggles, the works, when I heard my name. Liam. I turned just in time to see Vivian walking toward me in a red dress that didn't belong in daylight. Her heels clicked like punctuation. And trailing behind her, like some smug puppy off-leash, was Bryce. He looked like he'd stepped out of a Zillow ad, all teeth, tan, and tight slacks. The guy was a local real estate agent who thought he was God's gift to architecture. What he was doing with Vivian was something I hadn't let myself fully admit until that second. I took a step forward. Vivian? What? Before I could get anything else out, Bryce was in front of me. He smirked. You should be thanking me, man. Someone had to show her what a real man looks like. The words barely landed before his palm did. It wasn't a punch, just a shove. But it was enough to knock me off balance and onto the sidewalk, right in front of the fundraiser sign that read "Support Our Kids." My palm scraped concrete, and I heard gasps, phones clicking on. A crowd was forming. The twins, Max and Owen, were frozen mid-sprint just a few feet away, wide-eyed. Vivian didn't flinch. She didn't run to help or scold Bryce. She just stood there with one hand on her hip, watching, smiling. That was the part that broke me. Bryce crouched slightly. What's the matter, science boy? Don't like getting a taste of your own weakness. The laughter. From him. From someone in the crowd. It rang in my ears. And I snapped. I stood up, fist clenched, and before I could stop myself, I hit him. Hard. Right in the jaw. He stumbled backward, slamming into the raffle table, test tubes clattering like shrapnel. He stayed down, groaning. Dad? Max said, his voice cracking. I wiped blood from my knuckles. My breath came in shallow, angry bursts. Vivian stared at me, her face stone cold. You just made everything worse, she said. I didn't reply. I turned to Max and Owen. Get your backpacks. We're leaving. But the fundraiser, Owen began. We're leaving, I said again. My voice wasn't loud, but it was final. I didn't look back at Vivian or Bryce. I didn't need to. That image, her standing there while he shoved me, was seared into my skull like a scar. As I led the boys through the crowd, people whispered, phones hovered, eyes darted. I didn't care. Every step away from that sidewalk was a step toward whatever came next, and I already knew I'd never look at her the same again. Hannah didn't say a word when she opened the door. She just looked at my busted lip, at Max's tear-streaked face, at Owen's clenched fists. Then she stepped aside and let us in. Her farmhouse sat on the outskirts of Petaluma, all rolling fields and quiet. No jazz trios. No fundraiser banners. No one watching us like a train wreck they couldn't turn away from. Just space and silence. The boys headed straight for the guest room they always stayed in. Hannah had kept it the same since they were 5 bunk beds, comic book posters, a beanbag chair that was half deflated but still familiar. I stood in her kitchen like I didn't know what to do with myself. My shirt was wrinkled, my hands scraped. My face felt tight where the skin had split. Hannah poured me a drink, something dark and warm. I sat at her table and stared into it like it might show me answers. She was there, I finally said. She watched it happen. Hannah pulled a chair out across from me, her expression calm. I figured. She didn't even try to stop him, I said. Didn't flinch. Didn't say a damn word. She nodded slowly, letting me talk. That's what Hannah did. Always had. She was 6 years older, quieter, sharper in ways that made people underestimate her. I shouldn't have hit him, I added, though I didn't mean it. But he shoved me in front of the boys. What was I supposed to do? What you did, she said, matter of fact. You protected yourself. You protected them. I didn't feel like I'd protected anything. I felt like I'd walked away from a grenade with just enough shrapnel left in me to keep bleeding. That night, after the boys fell asleep, I sat on the porch with a second drink. The stars out here always looked closer, like they knew you were hurting and wanted to listen. The flashbacks hit me in waves. Vivian whispering in the bathroom with her phone cupped against her chest. Just a work call, Liam. Vivian coming home late with makeup too perfect and excuses too thin. Vivian saying, you never see me anymore, while I graded lab reports and tried to figure out how to stretch our mortgage payment another month. I remembered the way she'd stopped asking me to go to her PR galas. The way she kept changing her phone password. The way she'd started referring to me in front of her friends as the practical one. And I remembered Bryce, not just today, but the one other time I'd met him. At a charity mixer last fall. He shook my hand like it offended him, smiled at Vivian with a familiarity I didn't yet recognize. I dismissed it back then. Because denial is easy when the truth is too ugly. I drained the rest of my drink and closed my eyes. Vivian didn't just cheat. She watched me hit the ground and smirked. The bruise on my jaw would fade. But that moment? That was permanent. Inside, I could hear Owen snoring and Max turning in his bed. They didn't say much during the drive. Just clung to each other in the back seat like they knew the world had shifted, and they were trying not to fall off the edge. I wouldn't drink too much. I wouldn't fall apart in front of them. But I did watch the recording someone had texted me, the fundraiser incident from 3 angles. The slow motion of my fall. The crowd's gasps. Vivian's indifference. I didn't save the video. I didn't delete it either. I didn't feel proud. I felt hollow. And I knew that was just the beginning. The text came the next morning, right as I was trying to slice apples for the boys' cereal and pretend like things were normal. Vivian, you traumatized the kids. I hope you're happy. I stared at the message. My fingers tightened around the knife. Max sat at the table, still in his Spider-Man pajamas, absently flipping through a comic. Owen was curled on the couch with a blanket, pretending not to notice me reading the text. I didn't want to reply. I didn't want to give her another inch of my energy. But the anger in my chest bubbled hot. The need to respond wasn't rational, it was primal. I stepped outside, past the screen door, and dialed her number. She picked up on the first ring. Finally, she said, like I owed her that. What the hell is wrong with you? I asked. Excuse me. You let him put his hands on me. In public. In front of our children. And now you're trying to spin this like I'm the one who caused trauma. Vivian sighed, loud and dramatic, like she was already exhausted with me. Liam, you escalated. The boys were watching, and you attacked someone. What did you think they'd feel seeing their father act like a thug? He shoved me, I said, trying to keep my voice even. In front of them. You stood there and did nothing. Don't exaggerate. Bryce was upset. He didn't hurt you. You made it worse by lashing out like some angry teenager. I had to close my eyes. Gaslighting. That's what this was. I saw your face, Viv, I said quietly. You were smiling. That's ridiculous, she snapped. You're twisting everything. Maybe if you hadn't been so cold the past year, none of this would have happened. I swallowed hard. So it's my fault you had an affair? Don't act like I was getting what I needed at home, she hissed. You stopped seeing me. You buried yourself in your work, in your little experiments. I was lonely. I felt something inside me crack, but it wasn't grief this time. It was detachment. That slow, quiet disconnection you feel when you finally understand that the person you loved isn't there anymore. I'm not doing this, I said. I called to give you a chance. But you're not sorry. You're not even pretending to be. Silence. Then her voice, cold. You're being dramatic. No, I said. I'm being done. I hung up. No screaming. No threats. Just a quiet, ringing finality in my ears as I stared out at the empty field behind Hannah's house. I had spent the last year wondering if Vivian was still the woman I married. Now I had my answer. She wasn't lost. She was gone. I started with her phone records. It wasn't hard. Vivian had always been careless about tech, left things logged in, reused passwords, synced too much to the cloud. Maybe she thought I'd never look. Maybe she thought I'd never stop trusting her long enough to question anything. She was wrong. Hannah let me use her old desktop in the study, and after the boys were asleep, I sat there night after night, digging. It started with call logs. Late-night calls to a number I didn't recognize. Regular. Sometimes multiple times a day. Then texts. Hundreds of them. I didn't have the full content, just timestamps, frequency, metadata. But I didn't need the words. The pattern told the whole story. I plugged the number into a reverse lookup service. Bryce Maddox, realtor. I knew the name. I knew the face. Now I had the proof. From there, I checked social media. Vivian had a second Instagram account, a private one. I only found it because she once tagged our dog in a story, and the handle showed up in the account's connections. Stupid, really. But that's the thing about liars, they get lazy when they think they're winning. Her secret account was full of candid shots of wine glasses, hotel balconies, sunset beach walks. All tagged hashtag self-care, hashtag reset, hashtag coastal living. None of them showed Bryce directly. But the reflection in her sunglasses, the second wine glass, The way she was always conveniently on a business trip, the same weekends his own account went silent, it was all there. I downloaded everything. Every screenshot, every location pin, every timestamp. Then I called my lawyer. His name was Ellis Grant, a guy I'd met through a former student's dad. Clean-cut, mid-40s, the kind of attorney who wore jeans and Blundstones but still had a voice like an anchor. I gave him the whole story, the shove, the affair, the kids. He listened, took notes, asked questions. California's no fault, he reminded me. Infidelity doesn't get you much legally. I don't care about the cheating, I said. I care about the boys. He nodded. Then this is a custody case. Ellis explained that the courts don't care who slept with who, but they do care about stability, neglect, psychological harm, exposure to dangerous environments. Document everything, he said. We build from there. That night, I organized everything into a folder. Photos, screenshots, call logs, social media posts, even old messages Vivian had sent me that hinted at lies. I zipped the file and sent it to her. No subject line, no explanation, just 3 words for the judge. She didn't reply that night, or the next, but I saw she opened the file. Twice. I wasn't doing it to scare her. I was doing it to prepare. I wasn't the man on the sidewalk anymore. I wasn't her fallback. I wasn't going to wait for another public humiliation to start acting like a father. I already was one. Now I was going to prove it. It happened 2 days later. I was in the barn behind Hannah's house, helping Max and Owen build a birdhouse. They were covered in sawdust and snack crumbs, laughing every time a nail went crooked. For the first time in weeks, the air felt light. Then I heard tires crunching gravel. Hannah was on the porch before I even got outside. You expecting someone? She asked, already knowing the answer. I stepped into the sun just as the black BMW pulled up. The door flew open before the engine stopped. Vivian climbed out first. Bryce followed, walking like he owned the place, sunglasses still on despite the shade. Oh hell, I muttered. Boys, Hannah called calmly from the porch and sighed. Now, they didn't argue. That's the thing about kids, they know when something real is about to happen. I met them halfway across the driveway. Vivian looked tired, but still polished, like she'd applied her lipstick just to spite me. Bryce looked like a man trying very hard to play calm. Hands in his pockets, shoulders square, but his jaw was tight. You've crossed a line, Vivian said without greeting. Sending that file? What is wrong with you? I gave you a chance to be honest, I said. You chose silence. So now I'm being clear. Bryce stepped forward, smirking. You think you're going to win this? Some judge is going to laugh you out of court, man. You're wasting everyone's time. I turned to him, calm. You're trespassing. He laughed. This your sister's farm? Not your land, not your house. You're nothing, Liam. Always were. Vivian folded her arms. You really want to do this in front of your kids? They're not out here, I said. And they've already seen enough of what you really are. Bryce scoffed. Oh, come off it. We both know this is about your pride, not your son's. You got humiliated and now you're flailing. You're not a victim. You're pathetic. I pulled my phone from my back pocket. Want to hear something pathetic? I tapped the voice memo app and hit play. Vivian's voice came out clear, sharp, unmistakable. Recorded from the call we had just days earlier. You escalated. You made it worse by lashing out like some angry teenager. Then, maybe if you hadn't been so cold the past year, none of this would have happened. Bryce's smile faded. He turned to her. You recorded that? Vivian's face drained. Liam. I told you, I said, cutting her off. I'm documenting everything. And the next time you try to twist the truth, I'll play it louder. She took a step back, her composure cracking. You can't use that in court, she snapped. I shrugged. We'll see what the judge thinks. But I don't need it for court. I just need you to hear what you sound like. Bryce stared at her, piecing it together. You used me, he said slowly. This wasn't about us. This was about control. She didn't respond. He turned to me. Good luck with her, man. You're gonna need it. Then he turned and walked to the car. Vivian lingered. Her hands shook, just slightly. I hope you know what you're doing, she said. I do, I replied. For the first time in a long time. She followed Bryce without another word. When the car pulled away, Hannah came back out, arms crossed. Well, that was gross. Yeah, I muttered. But inside, I felt still. Like the scales had shifted, not all the way, but enough. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was taking control. The call came on a Thursday afternoon, just as I was restocking Hannah's pantry. Owen wanted more of those seaweed snack packs, and I was just grateful he was eating again. Mr. Corbin? The school secretary sounded hesitant, almost rehearsed. There's been an incident. Can you come in? I was there in 20 minutes. Max sat in the principal's office, arms crossed, a welt forming on his cheek. His hoodie was bunched in his lap. Owen sat next to him, biting a thumbnail and refusing to look at anyone. Principal Deutsch gave me that sympathetic look I'd grown to hate. The kind people give when they don't know your whole story but think they do. Max punched another student, she said. Unprovoked, according to witnesses. We're looking at a one-day suspension. I turned to my son. Max. His jaw tightened. He said you weren't our real dad anymore. That mom has a new family now. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. He said Bryce is our stepdad now, Max added, voice low. That we got upgraded. Owen finally looked up, eyes wet. They all laughed. I took a breath. And you hit him? Max nodded without apology. Principal Deutsch cleared her throat. While I understand this is a sensitive situation, we do have rules. I'm not excusing it, I said. I'll talk to him. She looked surprised. Maybe she expected me to yell. But Max wasn't the one who needed that lecture. After we left, I bought them milkshakes and parked under a tree by the river. I'm not mad, I told Max, but hitting someone won't fix what's going on. He stared at his cup. I just got tired of pretending it's all okay. I know, buddy. I paused. But you can't let their lies change who you are. Max blinked fast. Do you think she even cares? About what she's doing to us? That hurt more than anything. I think your mom's caught up in something, I said carefully. And sometimes when adults are lost, they hurt people without realizing it. Owen muttered, she knows. I didn't argue. They weren't wrong. That night, I called Vivian. She picked up after the second ring. I heard, she said. You're poisoning them. I said bluntly. Whatever game you're playing with Bryce, it's hurting them, not me. She bristled. I haven't said a word to them about you. You don't have to. They hear things. They see things. She was quiet for a second, then snapped. Maybe if you hadn't dragged them off like some wounded martyr, they wouldn't be confused. They're not confused. They're angry. And they're watching you act like none of this matters. Vivian's voice turned cold. Don't twist this around. If they hate me now, it's because you've been feeding them your version. I've been protecting them, I said. Something you stopped doing a long time ago. She hung up without another word. And I stared at my phone, more sure than ever. This wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a war, and my sons were the battlefield. I found out from Max. We were sitting in Hannah's living room, building a Lego set Owen had half finished weeks ago. Max was unusually quiet, twisting a red piece between his fingers. Bryce walks around the house in his underwear, he said suddenly. I looked up. What? Like, all the time? Even when we're eating? It's gross. I felt my stomach tighten. Has your mom said anything? Max shrugged. She just says he's comfortable in his home. His home. Later that night, Owen mentioned something else, that Bryce had left them alone for a couple hours during quiet time, while Vivian was out, working. No babysitter. No phone call. Just them, in a locked door. I didn't say anything right away. Didn't show them how that information made my blood go cold. But the next morning, I called Ellis, my lawyer. I think we've got more than enough to start building the case, I said. Then it's time to make it official, he said. Let's file. I hired a private investigator the same day. Not a cheap one. A real pro. Guy named Felix who looked like he lived in a hoodie and only drank black coffee. He got to work fast. Within 10 days, I had video and photos. Bryce stumbling out of bars mid-afternoon. Vivian screaming at the boys in the parking lot of a Whole Foods. A neighbor who reported hearing yelling and something break during one of the boys' visits. One photo, just one, showed Bryce tossing a beer can over their backyard fence while shirtless, Max visible in the background. I included it all in the custody petition. Ellis helped me file for emergency modification. The request was clear. I wanted full physical custody, supervised visitation for Vivian. It was bold, aggressive, but necessary. Vivian got the papers on a Tuesday morning. By noon, she called 12 times. I didn't pick up. By 2 o'clock, Bryce had sent me a series of unhinged messages. Bryce, you think you're gonna win with some staged pictures? Bryce, you're pathetic, man. Get over it. Bryce, she chose me. That night, I found my car keyed from front to back. The word, liar, scraped deep into the passenger side door. I didn't have proof it was him. But Felix had already anticipated something like this. He checked the traffic camera 2 streets over. pulled a blurry but usable frame of Bryce's car parked nearby around the same time. I filed a police report, attached it to the custody request. Vivian's fury was like a fire losing oxygen, wild, desperate, out of control. The next day, she emailed Ellis. Vivian, I will not be intimidated by this abusive behavior. Liam has always used money and guilt to manipulate me. Ellis read it aloud and shook his head. She doesn't understand. This isn't a PR spin. It's a court process. That night, Max woke up from a nightmare. I sat on the floor next to his bed while he clutched my arm. Are we going to have to go back? He whispered. I swallowed hard. Not if I can help it. And for the first time since this mess began, I believed it. It was just past 9 when the doorbell rang. Hannah and the boys were already asleep, the house tucked in quiet. I was on the couch with a laptop open, reading yet another email from Ellis about upcoming court dates when the chime cut through the stillness. I knew it was her before I even looked. I opened the door slowly. Vivian stood there in a long coat, eyes puffy, makeup slightly smudged. Behind her, the driveway was empty, no Bryce. Just her, looking strangely small. Can we talk? She asked. I didn't move. Talk about what? She looked past me like she might push her way in, but something in my face must have stopped her. About the kids. About everything. I stepped outside, shutting the door behind me. You've had weeks to talk. All you've done is deny, blame, and hide behind that idiot. She flinched. He's gone, she said. Moved out yesterday. I raised an eyebrow. Ran out of walls to vandalize? I didn't know he was going to do that, she muttered. You didn't know a lot of things, apparently. She folded her arms, defensively. Look, I messed up, but we need to figure this out. The boys need both parents. I leaned against the porch rail. You had both of them in your life. You just didn't treat it like it mattered. She exhaled through her nose. Can we just start over? Shared custody. Co-parenting. We can get back to something workable. No, I said, calm but final. Her face hardened. You don't get to decide that. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened an email. Want to hear what I get to decide? I scrolled and turned the screen toward her, an audio file Ellis had uploaded to the shared legal folder. It was a clip Felix had cleaned up, recorded from the day Bryce keyed my car. Bryce's voice. This is what she wants. She wants you pissed off. She wants you to lose it in court. Vivian's voice. Good. Let him show his temper. The judge needs to see the real him. She stared at the phone like it had slapped her. You recorded me? She asked, her voice sharp now. No, I said. He did. He just didn't know you were recording him too. Her mouth opened, then closed. I told you, I said. I document everything now. She blinked hard, trying to regroup. That was taken out of context. You orchestrated a setup, I cut in. You tried to trigger me, use the boys as leverage, and coach your boyfriend into getting me arrested. You threatened their stability. That's all a judge needs to see. Her voice trembled. You think you're so righteous. I shook my head. No, I just think I've had enough. She tried one last angle. You hit Bryce at that fundraiser. I can still bring that up. Use it. And I have surveillance footage of Bryce smashing my car and yelling threats. I replied evenly. That'll stack nicely against your claim. She stood there in silence, shaking slightly. You're going to lose, I said softly. Not because I want revenge, but because you lost sight of what matters. Vivian looked up at me one last time, and I saw it. That flicker of panic when someone realizes the power they thought they had is gone. She turned without another word, heels clicking across the gravel like a retreating drumbeat. And just like that, the war was nearly over. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Not some grand hall of justice, just beige walls, tired carpeting, and a judge with glasses perched low on her nose. But that morning, it felt like a battleground. Vivian wore a cream blazer and a tight, polite smile. She sat beside her attorney, whispering into his ear every few minutes like she could still control the narrative. Bryce wasn't there. Whether he'd cut ties or been cut out, I didn't know or care. I sat beside Ellis, my lawyer, our file thick with documents, photos, timelines, affidavits. Felix had provided video evidence, along with a notarized statement. The boys' school counselor had submitted an official letter outlining recent behavioral changes and concerns about their emotional safety. But the part that hit hardest, the one that made the judge raise her eyebrows, was the boys' own letters. Max had written, in big blocky handwriting, I don't feel safe at Mom's house. I want to live with Dad. Owen had drawn a house with 3 stick figures, him, Max, and me, all smiling. Vivian's attorney objected, saying it was manipulative to involve the children so directly. The judge frowned. They weren't coached. I've seen hundreds of these. Kids don't fake fear. Vivian's jaw tightened. For once, she didn't argue. Ellis presented the timeline of incidents, the shove at the fundraiser, the voicemail threats, the unmonitored visits, the vandalism. Vivian claimed she was being painted as unstable, that it was all taken out of context. Her voice trembled, like she was reaching for sympathy she didn't really feel. But it didn't land. When the judge asked her directly, "Why did you continue to allow Mr. Maddox around your children after multiple concerning events?" Vivian stammered, "I didn't think it would escalate." "You didn't think," the judge repeated, writing something down. By the time closing statements wrapped up, I felt calm. Tired, sure, but steady. Vivian sat rigidly, eyes darting toward me once or twice, like she still couldn't believe she might actually lose. But she did. The judge read the decision aloud, clear and direct. Primary physical custody is awarded to the father, Liam Corbin. Visitation with the mother will be supervised pending completion of a parenting assessment and 6-month review. Just like that. I didn't cheer. Didn't cry. Just exhaled, a deep, full breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for months. Vivian didn't say a word as she left the courtroom. Didn't look back. Didn't hug the boys, who waited outside with Hannah, coloring quietly on clipboards. She just walked out. And somehow, that silence said more than any speech ever could. Life got quiet after the hearing. Not silent, exactly, not with 2 boys in the house, but calm in a way I hadn't felt in years. No raised voices, no tension hanging in the air like smoke. Just Lego bricks scattered on the floor, cereal bowls left on the counter, and the occasional knock-knock joke that didn't quite land but still made us laugh. We stayed at Hannah's a little longer while I got things in order, but eventually I moved us back to the house in Palo Alto. The one I had built with Vivian, yes, but it didn't feel like hers anymore. It was ours now. We stripped the walls, painted over the sleek gray she'd insisted on with navy blue and soft greens. The boys picked out posters. Owen chose a giant rocket ship. Max wanted a vintage baseball diagram. We ripped out the chandelier in the dining room and put in a simple light fixture shaped like a mason jar. Not trendy, just warm. It wasn't about erasing her. It was about reclaiming the space. The first night back, we all slept in the living room, wrapped in blankets, eating popcorn off paper towels and watching the Goonies. Max fell asleep on my shoulder. Owen curled up with the dog. That's what peace felt like, not grand or cinematic. Just safe. About a month later, Bryce showed up. I was outside pulling weeds from the back fence when I heard the car door. I stood slowly, brushing dirt off my knees. He looked different. Not in a way I could fully explain. A little thinner. A little lost. "I'm not here to start anything," he said, holding up his hands. I didn't say anything. Just waited. He scratched the back of his neck. "She burned it all down. You know that, right? It wasn't just you. She tanked my license. Told my broker I was unstable. You were just the first." I crossed my arms. "So what do you want? An apology? A drink? Closure?" "No," he said. "Just wanted you to know. You were right about her. Took me way too long to see it." He looked around the yard like he expected to see Vivian step out of the house. When she didn't, he nodded slowly. "You got the good ones," he said, jerking his chin toward the house. "Take care of them." I didn't answer. He left without pushing. I watched his car disappear down the street, then went back to pulling weeds. That night, Max asked if we could build a treehouse. So we did. Weekends were for hammers and measuring tape and Owen dropping screws in the grass. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever is. But when we sat up there for the first time, looking out at our backyard with the sunset behind us, I knew we were okay. Not fixed. Not healed completely. But okay. Vivian faded like a shadow, still there in the corners sometimes, but powerless. And me? I wasn't the man who got shoved on the sidewalk anymore. I was the man who got back up and walked away with everything that mattered. I still remember the exact moment I heard the first voice message. I was in the kitchen, fiddling with the stupid smart speaker Claudia kept insisting we needed. It had stopped playing her favorite jazz station. One of the apps wasn't syncing, so I started poking through her connected accounts to troubleshoot. That's when I saw them. A folder labeled Private Notes, hidden inside the audio settings. I hit play. Her voice. Whispering. Breathless. "I can't stop thinking about last night. The way you kissed me when she was in the bathroom. God, Dorian." I didn't move. Didn't breathe. My mind tried to come up with any logical explanation, a voice memo taken out of context, a mistake, some weird prank. But then I hit play on the next one. And the next. Each message more damning than the last. The worst part? I recognized his voice in a few too. Laughing. Flirting. My daughter's fiancé. A kid I had taken fishing. Helped get a job with the city. Who once cried in front of me when his mother died. And now he was sleeping with my wife. My name is Arthur. I'm 52 years old. A firefighter in Louisville, Kentucky. I've run into burning buildings for a living. I've seen things most people would never stomach. But nothing ever hit me like those recordings. I didn't scream. Didn't confront her with yelling. I waited. That evening, after she came home from school, Claudia's a high school principal, I asked her to sit down. Told her I had found some audio files. She barely flinched. Like she'd already made peace with being caught. We didn't mean for it to go that far, she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. It just happened. I looked at her. Really looked. This woman I had shared 27 years of marriage with. I wanted to feel something, rage, disgust, betrayal. But all I felt was hollow. I didn't say another word. I went upstairs, pulled out the old green duffel bag I used for overnight shifts, and started packing. Jeans, shirts, my boots, the spare shaving kit. Claudia hovered at the doorway, asking if we could talk this through. I didn't answer. At sunrise the next morning, I was waiting outside the courthouse when they opened. I filed for divorce by 9. Then I sent the voice recordings to Mia. My daughter, 21 years old. Engaged to that bastard. I didn't include a note. No warning. Just the files. I figured the truth didn't need a caption. By noon, I had checked into a lodge 20 minutes outside the city, surrounded by pine trees and dead quiet. It was the first time I'd heard my own breath in what felt like years. That was the day everything ended. The marriage. The illusion. The future I thought we were building as a family. Some fires you can put out. Others just burn it all down. The lodge I checked into wasn't anything fancy. A little A-frame cabin with chipped paint and a slow-draining shower, nestled in the woods near Taylorsville Lake. But it had heat, quiet, and no memories clinging to the walls, and that was enough. The morning after I filed for divorce and sent Mia the audio, I hired a lawyer out of Lexington. Her name was Sharon Madsen. Sharp, calm, no nonsense. She'd handled firefighter pensions and ugly custody battles. When I told her why I was filing, she didn't flinch. Just nodded and asked if I had more proof. I sent her everything. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Mia. I almost didn't answer. Dad? Her voice was ragged, like she'd been screaming or crying, probably both. I got the messages. Are they real? My throat tightened. I hadn't prepared for this part. Yeah, they're real. There was a pause, just the sound of her breath trembling. Then she broke. I can't believe this. I thought Dorian was. We were supposed to get married next month, Dad. She started sobbing, full-on shaking sobs. I sat on the edge of the lodge bed, gripping the phone like it was the only thing keeping me upright. I'm so sorry, I whispered, but it felt useless. He kept saying he wanted to be part of the family, that he looked up to you. How do you do something like this to people who love you? I didn't have an answer. Later that evening, she called again. Quieter this time. Worn out. I kicked him out, she said. He didn't even deny it. Just said it was emotional at first. Like that made it better. You did the right thing, I told her. I don't know what to do now. I feel like I don't even know who Mom is. Neither did I. That same night, Claudia started blowing up my email. I had already blocked her number and social accounts, but she found ways around that: old shared calendar invites, spam email addresses. One message started with, "Please, don't do this to our family." Another one said, "You're tearing everything apart just because you got hurt." As if she hadn't detonated the whole damn thing herself. I didn't reply. The part that surprised me most was how calm I felt. I'd imagined betrayal like this would send me into a tailspin, breaking things, screaming, drinking. But I wasn't unraveling. I was steady. Still, maybe that's what happens when you stop lying to yourself. Mia called again a few days later from her friend Lacey's apartment. She'd moved out of the condo she and Dorian shared. Said she couldn't stand the smell of his cologne in the sheets. I don't even want to pack up the rest of my stuff, she said. Every drawer feels poisoned. I can help, I offered. When you're ready. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. Just murmured, "Thanks, Dad," and hung up. Back at the lodge, I watched the sun set through the pine trees, everything bathed in orange and quiet. No Claudia, no Dorian, no pretending. I was alone, yeah. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel lost. It didn't take long for the truth to spread. I didn't say a word to anyone outside of Mia and my lawyer, but I didn't have to. Mia posted the audio clips herself. She didn't give a speech. Just uploaded 2 files to her Instagram story with a simple caption, "Here's why there won't be a wedding." The first clip was Claudia whispering something about how he makes me feel alive again. The second was Dorian saying, "It's not about her, it's about us." Arthur doesn't have to know. Within 24 hours, everyone knew. The school board put Claudia on administrative leave by the end of the week. Apparently someone had forwarded the clips to the superintendent, and once the PDA moms caught wind of it, there was no salvaging her reputation. I heard from Sharon that Claudia had taken an indefinite leave, citing mental exhaustion and family complications. The city landscaping crew let Dorian go too. No official explanation, but I'd vouched for him when he was hired, and now people were pissed. There's a tight-knit brotherhood among city workers, especially the older crews. Nobody wanted to work beside the guy who'd blown up his mentor's marriage and destroyed a wedding. Mia told me that Dorian tried reaching out a few times. He sent her long, dramatic texts about how he was misunderstood and trapped in something bigger than himself. She didn't answer. Then one night she posted one of his voicemails. In it, Dorian's voice cracked as he begged her to remember how real it felt and not to turn everyone against him. Underneath the post, Mia wrote, "Manipulation sounds different when you're the one listening to it, not living through it." The comments exploded. Friends, classmates, even Claudia's coworkers. Some people called it sad. Some called it disgusting. But no one defended them. The silence from Claudia was deafening. Not one word to the public. No apology. No explanation. Just disappearance. At the lodge, I kept my head down. Didn't go out much. Didn't answer the calls from extended family. I knew what they wanted, a version of the story that made it easier to sit at Thanksgiving without picking sides. But I wasn't giving that to them. Sharon called one afternoon to update me on the divorce timeline. She sounded almost impressed. Not many people handle something like this with so much control. I just told her, "I'm not here to win. I'm here to be done." A few days later, I ran into one of my old firehouse buddies, Nate, at a gas station near the lodge. He didn't ask questions, didn't pry. Just said, "Heard what happened. If you ever want to grab a beer and scream into the void, I'm your guy." I almost laughed. That weekend, Mia came by the lodge. We didn't talk much. Just sat on the porch with mugs of coffee, watching the trees sway in the wind. She looked tired but lighter somehow. Like cutting ties with both of them had started to uncoil something inside her. "They tried to break us," she said quietly. "But I'm still here." "You're still here." I didn't answer. Just reached over and gave her hand a squeeze. Some things you don't need to say out loud. They're just understood, like fire, like grief, like truth when it finally stops hiding. It was just after 7 in the evening when I heard the knock on the cabin door. I figured it was the lodge manager or maybe Mia again. But when I opened it, there was Julian, my son. He stood there, hands in his hoodie pockets, shoulders slumped like he was trying to fold into himself. He was always like that, quiet, observant, carrying more inside than he ever let on. He was 20 now, a sophomore at the University of Kentucky. I hadn't seen him since before everything came crashing down. "Hey," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Hey," I replied, stepping aside. "Come in." He walked in slowly, eyes scanning the one-room setup. The small table, the battered couch, the sink with 2 chipped mugs drying on a towel. "This where you're staying now?" "For now." Julian sat down at the edge of the couch, rubbing his palms together like he didn't know what to do with them. "I saw Mom and Dorian," he said. "At the house. 2 days ago." I stayed quiet. They were arguing. Loud. Like, heated. I finally sat across from him. "She told me it was over." Julian gave a tired laugh. "Yeah, well," didn't look over to me. I didn't flinch. I'd already braced myself for this. Of course it wasn't over. Of course Claudia was still tangled up with him. People don't just stop being who they are because they get caught. Julian looked up at me, eyes searching mine. "Does this mean I have to pick sides?" "No," I said. "It means you have to ask for honesty. From both of us. Even when it hurts." He leaned back, head against the wall. "It's just hard to look at her the same." "I know. I keep thinking about all the nights I was upstairs in my room and Dorian was over for dinner, and she'd laugh at his jokes like nothing was wrong. Like it was normal. I could feel it in his voice, that slow ache of realization, that unraveling of trust. It didn't explode. It leaked, quietly, over weeks and months until everything inside felt waterlogged. "I never thought you'd leave," he said after a while. "Me neither," I admitted. "But I wasn't staying in a house that didn't respect what we built." He nodded slowly. Then he said something that gutted me. "Thanks for not pretending it was okay." I swallowed hard. "You don't owe any of us blind loyalty, Julian. But you deserve the truth. Always." He looked at me, really looked, and for the first time in months, I saw my son in there again. Not just the kid caught in the middle. The young man trying to find solid ground in the wreckage. We sat in silence for a while. 2 mugs of coffee between us. No expectations. No lectures. Just father and son, grieving the same woman in 2 different ways. It started with a certified letter. Sharon texted me a photo of the envelope and wrote, "Incoming. Call me before you open it." It was from Claudia's attorney. I already knew it wouldn't be good news. I called Sharon, and she read the contents to me over the phone. Claudia was contesting the divorce. Her legal team was claiming emotional distress, that I had been distant, withdrawn, and had created an emotionally unsafe household for years. That her affair, though regrettable, was a byproduct of neglect, not betrayal. "She's positioning the affair as a reaction," Sharon explained. "Not a choice." I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. "She's saying I drove her to cheat." In lawyer speak, yeah. I didn't say anything. "We'll respond," Sharon continued. "We'll use the messages, the timeline, the fact that you found out through a device you were fixing for her, not through confession. We'll also pull financials, your pension, your overtime records, any evidence of romantic effort, anniversary trips, gifts, anything." I nodded. "She's twisting it. Like always. She's trying to make herself the victim before the evidence nails her as the architect." A week passed. Then I got the email. It came from a burner account. No name. No subject line. Just a message. "You deserve to know the truth. Use this." Attached were 3 audio files. I played them on my work laptop at the lodge. My stomach turned as soon as I heard the first one. Claudia's voice, clear and deliberate. "I'm not in love with him anymore. Arthur's solid, reliable, but I feel like I'm suffocating. This with you? It's my exit strategy." The next clip was worse. "I used to picture our future. Now I picture my funeral just to get some peace. With you, I feel like I exist again. I need this. I need you." And then Dorian's voice, barely audible. "Are you sure you're not just using me to get out?" Claudia's reply, soft but sharp. "Does it matter? It's working, isn't it?" I sat there, frozen. It wasn't an accident. Wasn't a spiral. Wasn't some midlife crisis. It was a plan. I forwarded the files to Sharon without comment. 10 minutes later, she called. "Where did this come from?" Anonymous email. No clue. "That's his voice too?" "Yep." This dismantles her entire narrative. "Good." Sharon whistled low. "We're going to bury them." The next few weeks were a blur of depositions and paperwork. Claudia's side kept pushing the emotional abuse angle, but we hit back with receipts, literal and emotional. Hotel stays I'd booked for our anniversaries. A spa weekend she took with my blessing while I worked double shifts. Therapy sessions I paid for when she said she felt lost. When we submitted the audio files, her legal team requested a delay. Then a week later, they folded. No alimony. No pension cut. I kept the house. Full division in my favor. Claudia signed everything quietly. No fight left. A week after the settlement, I got a handwritten letter in the mail. No return address. But I recognized the handwriting instantly. She wrote that she was sorry for how things unraveled, and that pain does strange things to people. She said she missed me, that maybe one day we could have a real conversation. I put the letter back in the envelope and tucked it into a drawer I rarely opened. It didn't matter anymore. The truth had done its job. The day Claudia signed the final papers, it rained. Not a storm, just a soft, steady drizzle that coated the leaves and made the world look washed clean. I stood on the cabin porch with my coffee and watched the water beat on the railing. Everything felt quiet, weightless. Sharon called around noon. "It's done," she said. Her lawyer emailed the signed agreement 10 minutes ago. No revisions. No new demands. I didn't celebrate. Didn't open a bottle or blast music or text anyone. I just stood there in the silence, taking it in. Freedom doesn't always come with fanfare. Sometimes, it shows up in a folder of legal documents and a blank email from a defeated ex-spouse. Over the next few days, I got a series of letters from Claudia. Handwritten. Always unsigned. always arriving in plain envelopes with no return address. One read, "I still wake up expecting to find you next to me." Another said, "I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted more for myself." I didn't respond. She still didn't understand. She thought this was about forgiveness, about pain and apologies and whatever half-truths she could live with. But I had already said goodbye, not in words, in actions. When I walked out that morning with the green duffel bag, I left the version of me who needed her behind. The cabin lease was ending soon, but I wasn't in a rush. I started looking at listings near the lake, small houses with quiet porches and space for a grill. I wasn't planning some new chapter yet, just sketching the idea of one. Then Mia came to visit. She was leaving for Colorado, got a job with an environmental nonprofit that sounded like something she dreamt up when she was 16 and idealistic. I told her I was proud of her, that she deserved a fresh start. She hugged me tighter than usual before she left. "Thank you for telling me," she said, her voice muffled against my shoulder. Even though it destroyed everything, I'd rather be broken than lied to. I didn't say anything, just nodded and held her a little longer. Later that evening, after she drove off, I found one last letter from Claudia on my doorstep. This one was thicker pages, not just a note. I didn't open it. I walked it out behind the lodge and dropped it in the fire pit. Struck a match. Watched it burn slow and silent. That was the last thing she ever gave me, ashes. By the end of the month, the house was mine again. Sharon handled the title transfer. I walked through the rooms one afternoon, each one stripped of Claudia's things. Just me, bare walls, and the sound of my own footsteps. I wasn't angry anymore. Not sad either. I was still. Still, like calm water. Still, like truth that doesn't need to scream to be heard. The quiet didn't scare me anymore. In the weeks after the divorce was finalized, I found myself building a new routine without even realizing it. I woke early, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I'd make coffee slowly, take it out to the porch, and watch the mist rise off the trees. The cabin lease ended, but I found a fixer-upper just outside Taylorsville, 2 bedrooms, a detached shed I turned into a metalworking space, and enough yard to keep me grounded. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I started welding again, something I hadn't done since I was in my 20s. Turns out, there's a strange peace in shaping raw metal into something useful, something solid. I made a set of custom hooks for the wall, then a grill rack, then a firewood holder. I wasn't making art. I was making anchors. And then there was Helena. She ran the art co-op downtown. I met her when I walked in looking for a local exhibit, ended up talking to her for an hour while she showed me watercolors of Appalachian fog. She had this dry, no-nonsense humor and a crooked smile that made it hard to look away from her for too long. She was divorced too, 6 years out. Her ex had walked out one summer morning and never really explained why. We joked that between the two of us, we could write a manual on how not to marry the wrong person. We started with coffee, then long walks, then quiet dinners on her back porch, where her teenage son played guitar just loud enough for us to hear but not loud enough to feel like we had to stop talking. It wasn't love at first sight. It was something slower, kinder, like rain soaking into dry ground. Mia called every Sunday from Colorado. She sounded more like herself every time we spoke, lighter, more confident. She'd joined a hiking group, sent me a photo of her standing at the edge of a mountain with wind in her hair and a smile I hadn't seen in months. She'd also started therapy. Figured I should stop pretending I'm okay just because I'm functioning, she said. I told her I was proud of her. That was the truth. Julian came by every couple of weeks. Still quiet, still processing. He said he visited Claudia now and then, but it was awkward. Dorian was gone, but the house didn't feel like home anymore. She asked about you, he told me one evening while we grilled burgers. Wants to know if you'll ever come by. I shook my head. She made her choices, and I made mine. He nodded slowly. I get it. We sat in silence, watching the flames flick under the grate. I'm still figuring things out, Julian said after a while. But thanks for not pretending. I clapped him gently on the shoulder. Neither of us needs pretend anymore. There was no big lesson, no perfect closure. But for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was surviving. I was living, not to keep a family glued together, not to earn loyalty or love, just for me. It was almost exactly a year to the day since I left the house with the green duffel bag when we sat down to dinner. The first snow had just started falling that afternoon, soft and slow like it had nowhere else to be. I'd spent most of the morning prepping the kitchen, roasting vegetables, glazing a ham, even baking Helena's son's favorite mac and cheese. Helena brought pie. Mia arrived with a bottle of wine. Julian came with a half-wrapped box for everyone and a look that said he still wasn't sure where he stood, but he wanted to try. We ate by candlelight in the house I'd reclaimed, surrounded by people who chose to be there. I'd asked Julian weeks ago if he wanted to invite his mom. He'd hesitated, then nodded. She asked, but I told her you probably wouldn't want that. He wasn't wrong. I told him gently, I'm not angry, son, but I'm not inviting ghosts to dinner. So Claudia wasn't there. Neither was Dorian, and the air felt cleaner for it. After dinner, we sat in the living room. Helena's son, Nate, showed off a snow globe he'd made in school, and Mia laughed so hard at one of Julian's deadpan jokes, she almost knocked over her wine. Eventually, Mia pulled me aside near the kitchen. I saw her, she said, softly. Last month. Mom. I didn't say anything. She reached out. Said she wanted to talk in person. Just the two of us. I nodded slowly. How was it? She shrugged. We met at a coffee shop. It was emotional, but not explosive. She cried. I didn't. I think that shocked her. I raised an eyebrow. She asked me if I'd ever forgive her, Mia continued. And I told her forgiveness isn't the same as pretending it didn't happen. She say anything about me? Mia took a breath. She said she misses you. But I think what she really meant was, she misses who you used to be. The version of you that forgave and fixed everything. I smiled at that, not bitter, just knowing. I told her you're not that man anymore, Mia added. And that's okay. We returned to the table for dessert. Helena cut the pie, Julian passed out mugs of cider. For a moment, everything felt whole. Not because the wounds had disappeared, but because we weren't pretending they never happened. Julian stood up, cleared his throat. I just wanted to say thanks. For dinner. For all of this. Last year was hell. But tonight doesn't feel like a patch. It feels real. Mia raised her glass. To second chances. Helena smiled. And clear boundaries. I chuckled. And strong coffee in the morning. We all raised our glasses and clinked them together. Outside, the snow was falling faster now, dusting the porch steps and blanketing the trees. I stood for a minute at the window after everyone left. Helena and Nate headed back into town. Mia curled up in the guest room. Julian passed out on the couch with a book on his chest. The silence felt earned. This wasn't the family I started with. But it was the one I had now, smaller, yes, but stronger. Real. Not bound by blood or obligation. Bound by truth. And the willingness to sit in the ashes and build something better. From scratch.